Hi, this is Scott with Troutt Law Firm, and I'd like to talk about client behavior while a case is pending. You see, cases can take a pretty fair amount of time to actually get to a final hearing from when you file them, and the reality is, especially in domestic relations cases, i.e., divorce, custody, that what goes on while the case is pending can often be either just as important or just as damaging as what happened before the case was ever filed. So it is important to make sure that your behavior outside of the courthouse is reflective of the well-presented, well-dressed, well-spoken person who's standing in front of the judge whenever the final hearing is occurring. Number one, don't do drugs. This sounds really obvious, but there's differing opinions on what constitutes a drug. Some people believe that marijuana should be legal and that it's not the kind of drug that should damage one's ability to maintain custody of their children, for example. And there are other people who think that it should absolutely be illegal and that it's the worst thing ever. The simpler statement is you don't know which side of that aisle a judge lands on. And same with alcohol, or really any drug. So the best thing to do is to abstain from any drug use and honestly from any alcohol use. Alcohol is a little trickier because, it's obviously freely available in most people's regular life. And for a lot of people, having a drink with dinner or whatever, it's not that big of a deal, even if, there are children present. But the reality is that alcohol can sometimes lead to bad choices. Too much alcohol is the most obvious choice. Drinking and driving is another very bad choice. For most of us, and for practically all of us, it's never going to come up that way. But just out of an abundance of caution, it's best just to abstain. Number two, if you have a case pending, it's a good idea to not make any major relationship decisions. In other words, I wouldn't, while a divorce is pending, let's say, establish a relationship with another person. I also would not, while a custody case is pending, do the same thing or really break off a relationship in a lot of situations. It's very, very important to indicate stability. And honestly, one of the simplest indicators of how stable or unstable somebody is their love life. So it's best to get some semblance of stability in your personal life as well as your court life. Number three, don't argue with the opposing party. If the opposing party is your spouse or the mother of your child or the father of your child, it is best to treat them with the utmost respect. No matter what you actually think of them, it's very, very important to try to get along. Even if the other person is not reciprocating, there's no reason to get into a fight over, when you're going to meet to exchange the kids or, how a child's hair was on any given day or anything to that effect. You're going to court because these fights were occurring. The least that we can do is try to show that there's at least some willingness to work together. It's also important to do your best to get along because that's really what's best for your kids. And it tends to make the case cleaner. So it's a good idea to just get along. Number four, please do everything in your power to not get arrested. That is one of the easiest killers in almost any variety of case, of civil case at least, and really of criminal cases too, is to get arrested while the case is pending. It looks bad even if you're just going for a simple car accident case. It looks bad if you're trying to get custody of your children for sure, or even visitation. And it doesn't really matter what you got arrested for either. just don't do it. Now, I understand that most people can't control whether or not they're going to get arrested at any given point in time, so let's go to my final suggestion. Number 5. Don't break the law. Under any circumstances, no matter what kind of a case you have, no matter how you feel about that particular law or how ridiculous it is or is not, don't break the law. This should be true in general, but it's especially true whenever you're in front of a court. Whenever you have a case pending, it's just not a good idea. You will get skewered even if you don't get caught by the police, by the opposing party, or their attorney. It's just an easy dig, and it doesn't have to exist. So those are just a few of the many, many tips that I have for a person who has a case pending. It's by no stretch of the imagination exhaustive, and sometimes it varies according to what exactly the client's situation is. But in general, those 5 pointers are pretty good ones. So if you find yourself in a position where you need to utilize these tips, please consider giving the Troutt Law Firm a call.